The sound of tires screeching against the wet asphalt echoed in the darkened streets as Maximilian Ward, the billionaire CEO of Ward Enterprises, pulled into the driveway of the estate he once called home. It had been 5 years since he last stepped foot on this property. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a hollow shell, a reminder of everything he had left behind. He had spent the last half-decade building his empire, escaping the memories of his childhood, of his adopted mother who had raised him from the moment he was abandoned at the orphanage. Her love had been the one constant in his life. Her sacrifices, her unwavering devotion had made him who he was. But then, everything had changed. Maximilian had left in search of bigger dreams, higher stakes. It wasn't that he had outgrown her. No, it was that he had convinced himself that he needed to cut all ties with the past to truly succeed. He had stopped visiting, stopped calling, and the guilt had gnawed at him, but he buried it under layers of business deals and press conferences. Tonight, though, something had changed. The death of his biological father had left him with a wealth of assets and an unexpected inheritance, but it also left him with a strange sense of emptiness. Something was missing. He hadn't told anyone he was coming back. He needed to see things for himself. As he stepped out of the car, the cool night air hit him, but the familiar smell of jasmine and wood from the front yard was unmistakable. His footsteps echoed across the driveway as he approached the front door. It was locked, just like he remembered. But something was different this time. A soft light flickered from the kitchen window, casting a warm glow in the cold night. He froze. From the window, Maximilian could see a figure moving in the kitchen, the soft sounds of clinking dishes coming through the glass. The figure was bent low, working with a dust rag in hand. The person wasn't supposed to be here, not like this. Maximilian squinted, heart racing. There was no mistaking the figure. It was Lana, his adopted mother. But something was wrong. She wasn't standing tall like the woman he had known. She wasn't wearing her usual comfortable clothes, the ones they spent evenings together as a family. No, she was wearing a worn maid's uniform, the kind that belonged to someone who worked for a living, not someone who had built a life of their own. Confusion twisted his insides. What was she doing? What had happened to her? The door creaked as he pushed it open, and the sound echoed through the house. His breath caught as he stepped inside, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. And there, in the soft glow of the kitchen light, Lana straightened up and turned around, eyes widening in shock as she saw him standing there.
"Max? Is it really you?" Her voice was soft, shaken, as though she hadn't seen him in years, though it had only been a few months since their last conversation. But the sight of her in that uniform shattered something inside him. His mouth went dry. "Mom?" he whispered, the word tasting foreign on his tongue after all this time. "What is this? Why are you—" Her face, once radiant with pride and strength, now seemed smaller, thinner. She blinked rapidly, as if trying to push back the emotions threatening to flood her. "I didn't expect you to come back, Max. I didn't know how to explain." Maximilian's mind raced as he looked around, the walls of the house feeling more suffocating than ever. This wasn't right. If you walked into a familiar place and saw someone you love in a completely unexpected situation, how would you react? Would you question everything you thought you knew? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Welcome back, family. If you're settled in and ready for this journey, subscribe now and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Because tomorrow, I've got another incredible story waiting for you. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's begin. Maximilian stood in the doorway, unsure of what to do, his body frozen in disbelief. The woman who had raised him, who had been his only family for as long as he can remember, was standing before him in a faded maid's uniform. The woman who had poured her heart and soul into raising him was now on her knees, cleaning a house that used to be ours. Lana, his adopted mother, slowly put down the rags she had been holding, her fingers trembling as she folded them in front of her. The silence between them stretched thick and heavy, each second that passed feeling like an eternity. Maximilian took a hesitant step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "What happened, Lena? Why are you working like this?" Lena's eyes glistened with mixture of sorrow and something else. Guilt, shame, or perhaps a recognition of her own fall from grace. She stood up straight, her posture not as strong as it used to be, but she still managed to stand tall in front of him. "It's not what you think, Max. I never wanted you to see me like this." Maximilian's heart clenched. He had been so focused on his rise to success, so consumed by the idea of becoming someone more than the boy from the foster system, that he had lost track of the woman who had been his rock. "Why didn't you call me?" His voice cracked slightly, the vulnerability that he had buried beneath his wealth and power now rising to the surface. "Lana," I sighed, her eyes full of pain. She walked toward the kitchen table and sat down, folding her hands on the worn wood, as though trying to gather her thoughts. "I didn't want you to see me like this. I didn't want you to know that everything you built, everything you achieved, it came at the cost of my pride." Maximilian's eyebrows furrowed, confusion mixing with the anger that had slowly begun to creep in. "Cost of your pride? Lana, you helped me when no one else would. You were my mother when I had nothing. I owe you everything. And now you're telling me you've been hiding this from me?" She shook her head, her hands tightening on the edge of the table. "It's not about pride, Max. It's about survival. When you left, when you went off to build your empire, I lost everything. The house, the savings, all of it. I didn't want to burden you. You were living the life you always dreamed of." Maximilian's chest tightened at her words. The truth hit him like a punch in the gut. "Lana, I had no idea," he whispered, his voice full of regret. "I was so focused on my career. I forgot about you. I should have been here."
Lana reached out, her hand gently brushing his. "No, Max. You did what you needed to do. You were always meant for greatness. You were always meant to leave. I just never expected you to stay away for so long." Her words stung, and Maximilian couldn't shake the feeling that he had failed her. His success had come at the cost of his connection to the one person who had always believed in him. He had been so consumed by his own need for achievement that he had abandoned the woman who had given him everything. "I should have been there for you," he said quietly, a deep sense of guilt overwhelming him. "I'm sorry, Lana." Lana gave a soft, sad smile. "You don't need to apologize, Max. You did more than I ever expected you would. But when I needed you most, I couldn't bring myself to ask, so I kept it to myself. I didn't want you to see how bad things had gotten." Maximilian sat down across from her, his mind racing. He had spent years building his wealth, trying to prove his worth to the world. But in doing so, he had abandoned the one person who had made him feel like he was worth something. "Lana, this is my fault. I never should have left without making sure you were okay." He paused, the weight of the past few minutes sinking in. "What happened to the money? The house?" Lana took a deep breath, her voice steady. "I had to sell it, Max. After you left, I tried to keep it going, but the bills piled up. I couldn't keep up with the mortgage, so I sold everything, including the house. I couldn't bear the thought of you finding out, but now—" She trailed off, looking at him with tears in her eyes. "Now, I don't know how to fix it." Maximilian's mind raced as he absorbed the weight of her confession. The house he had grown up in, the life he had left behind, it was all slipping away. His mind wandered to the stacks of contracts on his desk, the endless meetings, the world he had created. Was it worth it? Was it worth the price of losing the woman who had raised him? His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden, sharp knock on the door. Before he could move, the door swung open, revealing a tall man in a business suit. Victor Hayes, the lawyer who had overseen his father's estate. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Victor said, his tone matter of fact, "but I need to speak to you immediately, Maximilian." "What's this about?" Maximilian's gaze flicked between Victor and Lana. Victor stepped inside, a hint of urgency in his demeanor. "It's about your father's will. There's something you need to know." Lana looked up in confusion. "Your father's will?" she repeated, a sharp edge to her voice. Victor turned to her briefly, then back to Maximilian. "I'm afraid I've just learned that there are new stipulations. It seems there's more at stake than the estate itself." Maximilian felt his stomach twist. "What do you mean?" "Your father left something for you, Maximilian. Something you didn't know about, and I believe it's directly related to your mother's current situation." The words hit him like a thunderclap. He had been under the impression that everything his father left had been settled, but now Victor was telling him something had changed. "What does this have to do with Lana?" Maximilian asked, his voice low with suspicion. Victor didn't answer immediately. Instead, he handed Maximilian a letter sealed with an official stamp. Maximilian broke the seal, his eyes scanning the document quickly. His heart dropped as he read the first few lines. "To my son Maximilian, should you ever wish to claim your inheritance in full, you must first meet the terms outlined in the following. The estate shall not be granted unless the one who raised you, Lana, your adopted mother, is treated as family, both in your personal and professional life. Any deviation from this shall forfeit the entirety of the inheritance." Maximilian's mind raced as he read the first few lines of the letter. His father had known this all along. It wasn't just about wealth. It was about respect and acknowledgement, and it was about the woman who had given him everything. "Your father's final request was clear," Victor continued, "and I'm afraid, if you choose to ignore it, your inheritance will be void." Maximilian stared at the letter, the weight of his father's words sinking in. The man who had abandoned him, who only saw him as a tool for his own legacy, had made this demand, a demand he couldn't ignore. The inheritance wasn't just money, it was an ultimatum. "Is this some sort of joke?" Maximilian muttered, his voice thick with disbelief. "Why would my father want me to treat Lana as family?" Victor shook his head. "Your father didn't believe in false pretenses. He believed in loyalty, and he knew deep down that you'd need to reconcile with the woman who raised you in order to truly move forward." Maximilian's gaze flicked to Lana. She had stood silently, her face unreadable, although her hands were clenched tightly. "What do you think of this, Lana?" he asked, his voice soft, searching for some guidance, some reassurance. She hesitated, her voice quiet. "I think your father knew you, Max. He knew how much you wanted to build something greater than what you were given, and he knew that you needed this reminder that family is more than blood." Maximilian's chest tightened. Could he really return to this life? Could he balance his newfound wealth with the family he had left behind? Victor looked at him intently. "This is your choice, Maximilian, but time is running out. You need to decide soon." Maximilian clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the decision on his shoulders.
There was no easy answer. That night, Maximilian couldn't sleep. His mind spun, wrestling with the truth of his father's will, with the weight of what had been asked of him. He had everything now: wealth, power, respect. But the one thing he hadn't earned was peace. His thoughts drifted back to Lana. Was he really willing to give her the respect and acknowledgement she deserved? Could he put aside his pride, his desire to be seen as self-made, and embrace the woman who had given him everything when he had nothing?
He barely slept, but when he awoke the next morning, a message awaited him. Not from Victor, but from Lana. She had left the house early that morning, and when Maximilian arrived at the estate to find her, he discovered she had disappeared without a trace. Panic set in as he searched the house. Her belongings were gone. He called Victor, his heart racing. "Lana's gone. She's left." "What do you mean, left?" Victor's voice crackled on the other end of the phone. "She can't have just left. She's tied to this will." "I don't know where she is," Maximilian replied, desperation creeping into his voice. "She's vanished, and I think it has to do with the will. I think she knew this was going to happen." Have you ever faced a situation where someone you cared about left and you didn't know why? How did it change the course of your life? Comment below. Your experiences might help someone else find clarity. Maximilian's world unraveled over the next few days. He searched everywhere for Lana, called every friend, every acquaintance who might have seen her, but it was as if she had vanished from existence. He stood in the empty house, the walls echoing his loneliness. The only sound was the distant ticking of a clock. His father's inheritance, his power, all felt meaningless without her. He realized too late that Lana had been the anchor to everything he had built. Without her, everything felt hollow. It wasn't until a letter from Lana arrived that things began to make sense. It was a simple note, written in her familiar handwriting. "Max, I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you, but I have to let you go, just like you let me go years ago. I've been waiting for you to return, but I need to move on with my life. I'll always love you, but I have to be free." The words hit him like a flood of regret. Lana had given him everything, but in the end, she had to take her life back. She had let him go, even when he had never truly understood her sacrifice. Maximilian sat in his office, the letter clutched tightly in his hand. It was a wake-up call, one that pierced through the layers of self-deception he had built around himself. The decision wasn't about his inheritance or the wealth he had accumulated. It was about love, about family. He had spent so many years focused on building an empire, but what good was an empire without the people who mattered? Maximilian knew what he had to do. He picked up the phone and dialed the number he had long ignored. "Lana," he said softly when she answered, "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I've spent too long running away from everything that matters." There was silence on the other end of the phone before Lana's voice broke through. "Max, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm coming for you. I'm not running anymore." Maximilian arrived at the modest apartment Lana had moved to, his heart pounding. He had found her, but this wasn't just about finding her. It was about making amends, about finally being the son she had always deserved. He knocked on the door, and a moment later, Lana opened it. She was standing there, looking smaller than he remembered, but her eyes still held the strength that had carried them both for so long. "Lana," he said, his voice breaking, "I'm sorry. I've been a fool." She stepped aside, letting him in. "It's not too late, Max. You finally figured it out." Maximilian took a deep breath, his words steady now. "I'm not asking for the inheritance, Lana. I'm asking for a chance to rebuild, not just with the foundation of wealth, but with the foundation of family, our family."
Lana smiled softly. The tears in her eyes betrayed the joy she couldn't hide. "You've come home, Max. That's all I've ever wanted." Maximilian smiled, his heart finally at peace. He had spent so many years running from the past, but now he was ready to build a future, with Lana by his side, where she had always belonged. The inheritance didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the woman who loved him unconditionally, the woman who raised him and shaped him into the man he was. Together, they would build something real, a future grounded in love, not wealth. Have you ever found your way back to someone you once lost and realized that the journey was worth it? Let me know in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to rebuild what was broken. If this story moved you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What moment resonated with you most? Drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Your support means everything. And with that, we close this chapter. Until next time.